President Donald Trump and RFK Jr. were at the White House yesterday where they made a shocking announcement about one of America's favorite medicines.
Tylenol during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do. You'll take a Tylenol, but it'll be very sparingly. It can be something that's very dangerous to the woman's health. In other words, a fever that's very, very dangerous, and ideally a doctor's decision, because I think you shouldn't take it, and you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy you shouldn't take it during the entire, and you shouldn't give the child the Tylenol every time he's born and he goes and has a shot. You shouldn't give a Tylenol to that child. All pregnant women should talk to their doctors for more information about limiting the use of this medication while pregnant. So ideally you don't take it at all, but if you can't tough it out, or if there's a problem, you're going to end up doing it.
President Donald Trump, flanked by his medical team, his staff and advisors at the Health and Human Services Department, especially Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., have been investigating causes for autism, which has been on the rise for decades now. RFK Jr. has made this one of his pet projects. Why is it that so many American children are suffering from autism? Why is it that there's like an outbreak of autism? What's changed? Is it the medicine? Is it the food? Is it the lack of exercise? Is it all of the above? And that is something that President Donald Trump has put his team on the fast track to finding out the answer to. He wants answers to autism.
The meteoric rise in autism is among the most alarming public health developments in history. There's never been anything like this. Just a few decades ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. So that's not a long time. And I've always heard, they say a few, but I think it's a lot less time than that. It used to be 1 in 20,000, then 1 in 10,000. And I would say that's probably 18 years ago. And now it's 1 in 31, but in some areas it's much worse than that, if you can believe it, 1 in 31. And I gave numbers yesterday. For boys, it's 1 in 12. I was told that's in California, where they have for some reason, a more severe problem. But whether it's 1 in 12 or 1 in 31, can you imagine? That's down from 1 in 20,000, then 1 in 10,000. And now we're at the level of 1 in 12 in some cases for boys, 1 in 31 overall. So since 2000, autism rates have surged by much more than 400%. Instead of attacking those who ask questions, everyone should be grateful for those who are trying to get the answers to this complex situation.
Not just a complex situation, but an epidemic. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has, like we said, for decades now, has been investigating and trying to find solutions. And now that he's in a position to do that, he believes that he's zeroed in on it. And it's Tylenol and acetaminophen use in women who are pregnant. There are countless studies of the umbilical cords. They said they studied various different communities. And ironically, the Amish community up in Pennsylvania had almost 0% autism. You don't find autism in the Amish communities. You also don't see a lot of traditional Western medicine like Tylenol usage for pregnant women in the Amish community. And by studying umbilical cords and by studying the blood flow and by studying, pregnant women and the link to their fetuses, they've zeroed in on Tylenol as one of the root causes.
We are continuing to investigate a multiplicity of potential causes with no areas of taboo. One area that we are closely examining, as the president mentioned, is vaccines. Some 40 to 70% of mothers who have children with autism believe that their child was injured by a vaccine. President Trump believes that we should be listening to these mothers instead of gaslighting and marginalizing them like prior administrations. Some of our friends like to say that we should believe all women. But some of these same people have been silencing and demonizing these mothers for 3 decades because research on the potential link between autism and vaccines has been actively suppressed in the past. It will take time for an honest look at this topic by scientists.
Yeah. So between the vaccine use, between the autism use, there's so many different variables that Donald Trump and his team are studying. And he's got everybody on the case. He's got everybody looking at it because the health of our children, the health of our future is reliant on what we are doing as a government to make sure not that we are forcing people to do things that could harm them, but allowing them the freedom of choice to do things that may make them even healthier. And Dr. Markey, who works with Dr. Oz and RFK, said, look, doctors at the end of this all are still going to make the decisions with their patients. We as the government are just giving advice based on the research and the investigations that we've been able to do at the national level.
Well, look, the studies that have said when a woman has a very high-grade fever that could have an adverse outcome on the baby, it may be due to the underlying reason for the fever, that is the infection, and not the fever itself. Again, we're letting those decisions take place between an OB doctor and a pregnant woman or a family doctor or whatever clinician or midwife is working with an individual. What we do know for a fact right now, Kana, is that acetaminophen has been given willy-nilly way too frequently without any discussion of the potential risks to balance out those discussions about the potential benefit. And we're just saying we want this body of scientific evidence now to be a part of that informed consent so that individuals can engage in proper shared decision making.
And that is something that really you would think everybody would want. In fact, that's what the Democrats have been telling us for years. Shared decision making between a woman and a doctor. It should be a choice. When they talk about abortion, it's a choice between a woman and her doctor. But when they talk about vaccines and acetaminophen and other things, well, guess what? It's no longer a choice between you and your doctor, lady. You've got to have the federal government forcing you to do this, that, or the other to yourself and or your child.
I think if you take a step back, the real historic reality of today was a very passionate president said enough is enough. We have gaslit women too long. There are problems with autism in this country. It's not just a measuring issue. And so he demanded that we break down the silos between me at CMS, Marty at FDA, Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, and Secretary Kennedy, also undaunted, will not be stopped. I don't care what. There's no political benefit of today.
No, this is not. This doesn't help anyone. Yeah, like if it's not true, it doesn't help. It makes everybody look bad.
Losing
so
donation.
Why would you do it? That's my point.
So for that all to happen, and for us to have this kind of alacrity, bring to the forefront something that was known of last year. A prior administration could have taken steps. This most recent paper came out at the end of August, but the data was based on, years of work. We have to take autism and their mothers of these children seriously. It destroys families at times, and we can't afford to have any more children without. President didn't want to wait another day.
Yeah, and that is what Dr. Oz, by the way, Dr. Oz from Health and Human Services, speaking with Laura Ingraham on Fox News, saying, look, this was the president saying we need to protect families. We need to, this was something the other administration knew. This is something that we needed to do quickly. And this is the reason why it's happening. This is the reason why it's happening. But it is important for the United States of America to look into all of these different issues and not gaslight these women anymore. Which is something that is very telling. And when you think about the American family, there are families who are torn apart. And, the autism in this country, all of these other, things that happen with children, they do put serious stress on parents, on finances. You're moving assets around to pay for your child's health care instead of doing something that, could be more beneficial to them, like sending them to a private school. And these are all things that he said, we can't just ignore it anymore. And the other interesting point that they bring up is that Donald Trump is not placating the drug industry either. He's not looking at Big Pharma and saying, hey, you know what? We know that you've been doing this for years, but just like the other administrations, we're not going to say anything because, you give a lot of money to a lot of elected officials. That's not the case here. President Donald Trump does not care. He's looking at Tylenol, that's one of the largest over-the-counter brands in history. He's looking at Tylenol and the makers of Tylenol and saying, you guys have a serious problem here. And if you're a woman, do not take this drug because acetaminophen is not good for your, if you're a pregnant woman, rather, do not take this drug because acetaminophen, we now see, has proven to cause autism. It's not Donald Trump being a politician. It's Donald Trump being a human being. Nobody benefits if they're wrong. People are going to lose donations politically. Other things could be happening. There'll be lawsuits. So Donald Trump is sharing this information simply for the health of women and their unborn children and their born children, for everybody, really. And Dr. Markey says this is something that for a long time we've wanted to take on head on. And again, thanks to Donald Trump, now we are.
I think what we're doing is we're trying to say we want to take this problem head on. We also released today information about a new label change. We're going to approve a treatment for kids with severe autism that have an antibody or a deficiency of folic acid in the brain. Maybe 20 to 50 or 60% of all the kids with autism have a blocked receptor in their brain that's not allowing their folate, that is their vitamin B9, to get in the brain and for those nerve cells to develop normally. And this medication, leucovorin, bypasses that receptor. And there are incredible stories from doctors of seeing dramatic improvements. So we've got good news and we've got this warning.
All right. So we got good news saying that there's not only the warning about acetaminophen, but there's a new drug on the market, or there's stuff on the market that's going to actually help fight autism and help the folic acid get to the places where it needs to be and reduce those brain blockages. On the home front, or on the Homeland Security front, Kristi Noem was also discussing some of the things that have been happening with Homeland Security in California. One of them, of course, is that she received a threatening message from Gavin Newsom. Just the other day, the governor of California tweeted out, "Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day today. You're welcome, America." That was from Governor Newsom's press office. That is a threat in any way, shape, or form. You can't take it as anything other than that. And Kristi Noem herself said, yeah, we didn't take it as anything other than a threat. And my family members and people that I know were very concerned that the governor of California was going to do something to me.
Well, it was cryptic and it was really menacing. I would say, Sean, it immediately panicked my family and friends. Within, I would say, a couple of minutes of that being posted, I started to get text messages and phone calls, family, my kids saying, "Are you okay, Mom? Are you fine?" They know the threats that I've had. They know the threats that they've had, the things that have happened to them because of politicians like this that say things and somebody grabs onto them that has an agenda, the cartels and criminals that have threatened our family already. So when you get a post like that by a governor, immediately, my staff and family think, what is going on? What does he mean? And we're trying to figure it out. So, this is a day and age where we've always known that words matter, but there's been real consequences that we have realized that have happened to incredible people like Charlie that we'll have to live with forever. And I hope we all learn from that. I hope we all learn that it's time to start listening to each other, having civil discourse, and stop ridiculous, irresponsible posts like Governor Newsom put out there.
Yeah, he's probably not going to do that. He's a ridiculous, irresponsible person. And he's very angry about the ICE agents wearing masks when they go and deport illegal immigrant criminal aliens in California. In fact, he passed legislation that said, hey, you can no longer wear a mask if you're a federal ICE agent. You can no longer wear a mask if you're a federal officer. He banned pretty much most of the police in California from wearing masks, not showing their names or their badges when they're maneuvering among the streets of California. The only problem is that he doesn't actually have any jurisdiction over federal law enforcement, and federal law enforcement can act and do as they please in any state because, well, they're federal law enforcement and they take, he's the governor of California. And Kristi Noem said, that's fantastic that you think that you have the power over us, but you don't. And so we are going to continue to maneuver and do our job and deport these illegal criminal thug aliens as quickly and as, secretly as we can, because it protects our own officers from harm.
It's not going to fly, Sean, and you've already mentioned that it's unconstitutional. So this was just something they could use to posture and attack our ICE law enforcement officers over again, and that's what's so irresponsible about it. Governor Newsom waited many, many days to even sign this into law, and like you said, wouldn't even be enforced until January, which means that it's pointless. It's just something that they want to talk about. I was a governor when I had a bill and a policy that I thought was very important for my people in the state of South Dakota. We put an emergency clause on it. We signed it into law as soon as possible. That means that Governor Newsom doesn't think this is important. He just wants to use this to raise money. He wants to use it to go out and try to make himself feel like a big deal. And he's doing it by attacking our law enforcement officers and making their lives more dangerous. And every time I'm in a room with our law enforcement officers, I'm talking to them before they go out on our streets, I'm just overwhelmed by the fact that all of these young men and women have families, that they all want to go home to their families at night too, and that people like Gavin Newsom are making it much more dangerous for them just to go do their jobs.
And that is something that the federal government, Kristi Noem, and President Donald Trump are not going to stand for. A couple of other big stories today. President Donald Trump is going to speak to the UN General Assembly, and he's going to be talking about a myriad of different things. I imagine Ukraine will be on the table. Gaza and Israel will be on the table. Tariffs will be on the table. He'll probably mention immigration as well, not to mention, of course, Putin. That's always going to be a big topic of conversation. And we'll bring you the highlights from that speech a little later on today on our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. It's a live stream podcast, which begins at 1 p.m. Eastern time every single afternoon, or you can listen at your leisure. Just go to iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. The best way to find it is to go to markkaye.com, MarkKaye.com. Click the big red button that says, I want the podcast. Download, subscribe, listen, and enjoy.